Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to greet everyone. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on this platform with such amazing women. Thank you so much, Bubbling Bee, for such an, powerful presentation about how, you dominated in a male industry. That is so amazing. And I'm so grateful. So I don't want to take too much time. But as you know, as young girls growing up, for me, I'll share my journey as a young girl growing up. And I had this thing of always wanting to be in a relationship. I would say, I think when I got to the age about 17, 18, there I saw my friends in relationships, and some of them even began to get married. And I was like, okay, I need to, find a guy to be with to maintain a relationship. And I really struggled with that. It was always Yvonne and someone. It was always Yvonne and someone. And for me, this relationship never lasted long. It's either we're together for 3 months, we break up, I jump into the next relationship. It lasts less than a year. We break up, I jump into another relationship, just trying to maintain a relationship because of the pressure. I would see my friends in relationship for 3 years, 5 years. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I keep a relationship? I started putting a lot of blame on myself, and I started having insecurities, just feeling maybe I'm ugly, there's something I'm not doing that they're doing. And I remember this conversation I had with my friend. I was about to break up with this guy, and I was like, you know what? I just feel like he's too controlling. I can't be myself with him. I feel like I have to be something that I'm not, and I don't feel confident in myself. I feel like I'm losing a part of myself. I'm such an outspoken person. I was confident then, and I had to. He was shutting me down. He was shutting my voice down. It's as if like what he says goes. I didn't have an opinion anymore. And I just felt like I was losing myself. And my friend was like, no, Yvonne, don't break up with him. You know how guys are like, you change him as time goes on, he will change. Are you going to break up and then start another relationship again? So when she said that to me, it made me feel like, okay, she might be right. Because, I was looking at her relationship. She had been with her boyfriend for 5 years, and I was admiring that. I was comparing myself. Another thing that we as young people, young women and girls deal with is comparison. We look at what other people are doing in their lives. We look at their journeys. It seems perfect from the outside. And I remember just saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I remember praying to God, saying, God, what are my friends doing that I'm not doing? Like literally praying to God, just crying, like, why can't I maintain a relationship? What is wrong with me? And I remember vividly one day God just saying single season. And I didn't understand that word, what he meant by single season. And as I started just journaling in my diary, writing my thoughts, my prayers, and everything, God asked me to just say, I just want you to be Yvonne on your own without being in a relationship. Like I said before, it was always Yvonne and someone. And God was like, I just want you to be on your own, just Yvonne and me, as in just me and God. And I remember taking that break. I think it was for a good 2 years. I was just single, just not dating, not looking or anything. And in those 2 years, my life changed. I started to see myself the way God sees me. I started to see that, I spent a lot of time comparing myself to other people's relationships just to realize they were compromising so much to maintain those relationships. They were going beyond and above to do so much, going, even to the point of just compromising themselves, their identity. And I took time on this journey, just seeking God and getting to know who I am in Christ and who God created me to be as a person, because I was so used to be attached to someone. It was always Yvonne and this person. But that time helped me just to get to know who I am as a person. And as I was in my mid-20s, the thought of when am I getting married started. I started having those attacks, those mental attacks of when is it going to happen for me? I'm seeing my friends or even younger people than me getting married. And, for sometimes in our culture, it's like you grow up, you finish school, the next thing is marriage. And then the next step is children. But life is not designed like that. Life is not designed, everyone's journey is different and unique. So when we finish school, we tell our girl child, you look for a job. After getting a job, get married. Sometimes we don't even encourage them to look for a job. Sometimes we say, no, your husband will take care of you. And for me, I'm so grateful that I came from a background where my mom did not, push the marriage thing on me. I realized I was actually putting pressure on myself, and I was just putting pressure because of what was going on around me, seeing other young women, other girls getting married. And like you mentioned, Bridget, that, people would say, what kind of man would marry you with that job? That's another stereotype you get. And as the older as you get, you start to feel, in some circles, you find that even married women are threatened by single girls and single women around their husbands. They start to say, no, she's not yet married, she shouldn't be around certain circles. Sometimes you feel like you can't even attend events if you're a young woman or a young girl, because you feel other women will start looking at you side eye just because you're greeting their husband. All you're saying is just hi, but you can see tension already, that the wife is eyeing me like, okay, how long, what are they talking about? So those are some of the pressures that young single women face in our society. And another thing is, we don't do justice, especially in the church circles. We don't really help other young girls. We're actually putting more pressure on them, like, don't you see this brother now? Don't you see this, he's looking, he's good, he's got a good job, why don't you just go for him? We are not allowing young women, to have personal development. It's okay to tell a young girl, don't rush to get married. Make sure you know who you are as a person. You know what you stand for as a person. Because when you get married, I've realized it now that I am married, you've got someone else's influence when you're married. And if you don't know your identity, if you don't know who you are as a person before you get married, that's going to be something else in marriage. You don't have to lose yourself as a young woman when you get married. Like, I thank God that I went through that journey of single season, of me working on myself. Because today, now that I am married, I know who I am. Yes, I am a wife, I am a mom, but I've not lost who YVONNE is. And sometimes when you get married, not knowing your identity, you can easily lose who you are as an individual. You have to remember that you're an individual, you're a human being. You are not just created to be a wife or a mother. You're more than that. So I want to just touch on that, these stereotypes of relationship goals have destroyed so many young women. So many young women are in relationships, not because they want to be, but because of society, because of, if I break up and leave this relationship, people will ask question, what happened? You no longer post him anymore. So there's so many young girls that are going through depression, just trying to maintain a relationship because of the stereotypes and the stigma that we are facing in our society. And after those 2 years, I spent a lot of time journaling and writing, and God gave me this book that I wrote, The Single Season, The Journey Before Marriage. And I talk a lot about self-discovery in this book. I talk a lot about being content in your singleness, not letting the pressure of society, of other people get in the way. I talk a lot about developing a relationship with yourself. Have a relationship with yourself first. Love yourself first before you can expect someone else to love you. So I feel like as a society, as mothers in this society, let's help the girl child discover who they are. Let's not put too much pressure on marriage that, you're 30 now or you're 40. I mean, I think as a society, I don't know who made this thing up of you have to get married at a certain age. There's no rule book about when you get married. People get married in their 50s. People get married in their 40s. Some get married in their, teenager ages. But it's okay. Who made that rule that you have to get married at a certain age before you turn 40 or before you turn 30? And if you're not married at a certain age, something must be wrong with you. I'm here to just let a young girl, a young woman, you may be in your 30s, in your 40s, going into your 50s. And if you're not married, I just want to let you know that there is nothing wrong with you. And the devil, the enemy, plays on that. Once you start to think that there's something wrong with you, you start to have mind attacks. Maybe it's because I'm not beautiful. Maybe it's because I don't have a certain job. Maybe it's because I don't come from a certain background or family. There's nothing wrong with you. I want you to allow God. In God's timing, it will happen. God knows you. There's nothing wrong having a desire to be married. God knows your heart desires. You desire marriage, and it's a good thing to desire marriage. There's nothing wrong with it. But don't let it become an idol in your life. And shut out the noise of people talking a lot. Shut out the noise. If it means you have to change your circle that you hang out in, do so for the sake of your peace of mind. Because sometimes we allow ourselves for people to talk to us, to talk us into thinking that something is wrong with me. I'm not yet married. You know, you even have young women that end up going to places like sangomas to seek for help, to see why they're not married, you know, trying to trap a man. Because you get to a point, I think women get to a point where we're also looking at my biological clock is ticking. I haven't given birth yet. I haven't had a child. I'm in my mid-30s. Am I going to be able to bear children? But God is the one that gives children. They're a blessing from God. No matter what age you are, if God has destined you to be a mother, you will be a mother. And if it is your heart desire to get married, God will surely fulfill that desire for you. I just want to know, to let young women and young girls that in God's timing, it will happen. It's a pressure that I know how it felt, because at some point I felt that pressure that every time I would see a guy, I'd be like, maybe it's my husband. You know, I'd be like, God, I'm praying today. Give me a sign. I'm going out. As I go out into town, if it's my husband, is going to be wearing a blue shirt, and I'm going to town, and all the men I see, they're wearing blue shirt. I'm like, God, don't make them all wear blue shirts. At least I said one of them. So you can see how the enemy can play on that. And if a guy had approached me who was wearing a blue shirt and said, oh, hi, can I have your number? I was going to give him my number, because I would think God is answering my prayer. So we have to be careful also that don't be so desperate, because the enemy is cunning. He knows you're desperate for something, and he may bring a counterfeit, something that looks like it's God, but it's not God. So as young women, let us enjoy and embrace our single season. And this book is available on Amazon. You can buy it for your daughters, for your nieces, even if you're a newlywed. Read this book. I have some friends that are married that have read the book, and they've said, oh my God, we wish we had read this book prior to being married. And some of the stuff that are in here, if you've got daughters, teenagers, don't wait until they have the bridal shower to try and start give advice and stuff like that. Don't wait until then. It's time to sit down with our daughters. Let's encourage them. Let's build self-esteem in our girl child, that there's more to life than just being married or just being someone's wife. Pursue your dreams, pursue your passions, go out there, be a businesswoman, buy your own property before you're married. It's okay to have all these things. Buy land, do things as a young girl. Don't wait to say, I'll do this with my husband. No, do it now while you're single. Do it now while you're young, while you have the time before the kids come. You know, I used to hear women say to me, you know, when time comes, when you have a family and a husband and a child, you will not have time to do most of these things that you're sleeping on. And now that I'm a mom and I'm a wife, I can surely say I have to literally make time for these things. I have to literally put things in a diary. Today, I'm going to spend time, you know, I need to do this. I need to do that. But when I was single, I'm thinking, man, I had so much time in my single season. Like, you know, I look back now and I'm like, but I thank God that that time was not wasted. Though it started off, I wasted a bit of it. But when I realized, when God gave me, you know, the word single season, to say, embrace this journey, because where you're going, you can never go back to your single season again. You can come back, even if you're divorced, you know, you've been married and you're divorced and now you're back in your single season. I'm sure you've had that experience. You've learned something. So try not to be pressured again into marriage. If you're not ready for marriage, take your time, heal. And sometimes we're pressuring our daughters into marriage without asking them, you know, have you had counseling? Have you, you know, do you know what marriage is, what you're about to walk into? I think we need to educate even the girl child about marriage and be honest that it's a responsibility. I mean, social media has glamorized it and made it seem like, you know, once you're married, everything is perfect. You're marrying into a different family. That comes with its own challenges. You know, your husband comes into your family, it comes with its own challenges. So I think it's important that we sit our girl child down and really explain to them what is marriage. something that you're about to walk into. It's for life. Till death do you apart. Are you ready for the responsibility of becoming a wife and a mother? So sometimes girls are walking into marriage unprepared. And once they walk in, that's why these days there's such a high rate of divorce, because so many people walked into marriage unprepared, not knowing. They thought it was going to be a fairy tale. But I feel like we can do better as a community, as a society, to prepare the girl child. And it doesn't have to be something we have to put a timeline on it. Marriage can come any time in your life, whether you're in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s. Embrace your single season. Enjoy the season that God has you in right now. So I just want to leave time for question and answers. If you want to elaborate more on this topic and you're here, I think we have our facilitators. They can assist us on that. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, YVONNE, for such an inspiring session. Just listening to your journey is amazing. I can't say that I've walked the same journey as you. I got married pretty early, and before you know it, I was in my marriage. And a lot of what I get sometimes, ladies say to me, Priscilla, you don't know what it was like, what it is like to actually wait. So having people like you to share their journey and their own personal stories is really, really impactful. So, ladies, again, I would advise you to just type in the comment section, what was the takeaway for you from this message? What is your takeaway? And if there are any questions, kindly throw them in the comment section as well. So what I would like to just ask before anybody else that has a question is, what are some of the practical steps would you say that you had to take, or that one single woman should take, if the pressure is coming from within? So say from your mom or your dad or people that are very close to you. You know, from outside, you know, sometimes you can just be like, you know, I'm not going to go to their house. If it is my aunt and they're pressuring me to get into marriage, I'm not going to go there. But you're a young lady with your mom or your dad, and your mom or your dad are telling you your time is ticking. What are some of the practical steps do you advise single women to engage on?
I think communication is so important. And nowadays, I think it's important that a young woman sits down with their parents and really explain to them that why are you, ask questions and ask them, why is it so important to you that I rush into marriage when I'm not ready? Do you want me to rush into it and then come back home as either as a divorced woman? Because these days in marriages, it's unfortunate that sometimes young women are actually losing their lives in marriage, because some are walking into abusive marriages. So it's a matter of asking, you know, do you want me to come home as a divorced woman or even in a coffin? Because I remember like a family member was being abused in a marriage, and we had to get her out of that marriage physically, literally. Family had to go to that home and literally said, come back home. Because if we had not taken that step, we know she was going to come back in a coffin. It was that bad. So I think sometimes it's sitting down and really explaining to your parents what's really going on out there. I'm sure we all have social medias. We read about these stories. We hear about them. So it's important that your parents also give you, why is it so important to them that you get married so quick when they know, or you know, that you're not yet ready to take that steps. So I think it's high time that we have those conversations with our families and really explain to them how we feel about just walking into marriage in a rush. Maybe they may have the ideal family they want you to marry into. Obviously, things always look perfect on the outside, but once you're inside, it's a whole different story. So I think communication is important.
Yes, amazing. Thank you so much for that. Pastor Sarah, any add-ons?
I was going to say thank you so much, YVONNE, for speaking in such a vulnerable and such an open manner. This is a topic that I'm realizing a lot of young people are dealing with, the season of singleness and learning to discover themselves and learning to be silent and still enough, to hear what God is saying for them and to allow God's timing as opposed to rushing into things because everyone else is doing it. I've got young daughters of my own, but also so many young women who look up to me. And I really, I've sent this out to as many people as I can. I hope they get to see this. Coming from a fellow young woman who's walked that journey of singleness, because like Priscilla is saying, I got married really young. So it's, and there's some things that I don't understand, but now hearing it through your eyes and through your experiences, I hope young women look up to mentors like you, so that they slow down their role, so that they, we have less accidents and less healing to do because we've entered into things prematurely. Thank you so much. I really appreciated your talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to share for that. One thing that we always share with the singles is that a broken relationship is better than a broken marriage. So it's better you don't get it and then come out. So it's very simple than being in a conflictual relationship, because everyone can mess up your life big time. A wrong marriage can mess up your life, mess up your destiny big time. Questions in the comment section.
Facilitator?
Yes.
Thank you. I've been lifting my hand. I don't know whether you don't have access to seeing all the people on the profile. And and then there is a feedback that's coming, so it's difficult to understand some of the things you are saying. I don't know whether you've got two gadgets or if there's someone with two gadgets. I don't know. There is a feedback. You can't hear me? Yeah, so there is a feedback if that is interrupting your presentation. So I don't know whether yours, yes. I don't know whether you've got like another gadget inside.
No, I don't. I've got headphones. But let me try and move environment.
Okay, or change the headphones.
Okay, Auntie, do you mind just repeating the questions and while I just try and change my location? There are questions in the chat box.
Awesome. I will read all the questions. What do you advise someone who's worried about their biological clock and is scared and anxious about having to wait longer? Another question, how can young girls assess their readiness in terms of emotional, mental, and financial aspects? Those are the questions.
I'll start with the first one, which is about the biological clock. I think this is one every woman, even myself, and I was only in my 20s and I was worried about my biological clock, which is really silly. But I can say, I know we don't talk about this in our culture, in our community, but you are allowed to go to, to have even yourself checked by the doctors on how fertile you are. You are allowed. And I think we need to start talking about these things. If you see yourself, you're in your 30s, in your late 40s, in your 50s, and you want to have children, I think we need to start talking about it's okay to freeze your eggs. It's not a sin. You are preparing yourself. So I would advise that you seek medical help, get all the information you need, and also pray about it. Above all, pray about it and hear what God is saying concerning you. And, don't worry yourself, because worry brings sickness. When you worry yourself about things, some things are better left in God's control. But I think it's time for our generation to be proactive. Look after yourself, be healthy. You hear about 40-year-olds, 60-year-olds that are still giving birth, and it's okay to go and get checked to see, how fertile are you? How are you in terms of health-wise? Can you carry a child? It's something that should be normalized, and you'll be given good advice by professions. And I don't think you should worry yourself too much, especially if you've not even had like a medical advice. You start worrying yourself, playing these thoughts in your minds that, I'm in my 40s. Am I going to have kids? Is it too late? Shall I just get a guy to get me pregnant and just have a child? At least people will say I had a child. No, you're better than that. And God loves you. Value yourself. If it means, if it's something that you're worried about, I would advise seek medical advice. Go see a gyno, go see a doctor. They will refer you to specialists that can check how fertile you are, so you can have peace of mind. That's my advice. I know it's not a very, something that our community talks about, people going to check how fertile they are or freezing their eggs, but I think it's something that we need to normalize.
Is there anyone that would like to make a contribution to that? Yes, Pastor Sarah.
You are very clear now, facilitator. Thank you.
I'm in the car now. Wonderful. Yes, Pastor Sarah.
I was going to say, Yvonne, as you're speaking, I love how you're talking about how we can have children at 40, at 60, because it really is happening. And then naturally, I went back to the scriptures, and we know our mother Sarah, the wife of Abraham, how old was she when she had a baby? And then Elizabeth, who carried John the Baptist, she hid herself when she was pregnant because she was a little bit older than the normal childbearing age. So these stigmas have always been there. And unless we are conscious and aware enough, we will allow these stigmas to stick. God's timing is always the best. So like you're saying, you can be a 40-year-old brand new mom, and that's God's timing for us. Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Sarah. I would like to echo the same, that God's time is always perfect. And many times when we don't see it in God's perspective, we want to rush things. And sometimes we want to even help God. That's how I call it. We want to help God by, implementing all of these strategies. What can I do to make sure that by the time I actually find the right person, I'll be able to still have a child? But you know what? If we can just leave it all in the hands of God and say, God knows best. He knows what we need even before we ask of it. So he knows when you need a child, that you need a child. And so if us as Christians, speaking to Christians, if we can not take the role of God and say, I want to help God, what can I do? And just live our lives for God and say, God, you're in control of my life. And like Pastor Sarah said, it was there in the Bible, and they did not have those facilities to freeze eggs and do all of those things. So they had to rely on the one above. And because he is God, he was always faithful to his promises. And I believe that he still is faithful till today. So yes, singles, believe in God, believe in his perfect timing. We're not saying that people will not chat about it, they will talk about it, but it is about us staying focused and looking unto the finished goal. So thank you so much, YVONNE, for sharing that. We are moving on to our next